The components for me was I wanted someone that was going to come in and had the same philosophy as I have about football, had the same philosophy about hard work in the lower leagues, and as I say, we interviewed a few, and Steve come to the top of the pile, and I was delighted when he agreed to join us. And it's something that being a director of football, people sometimes are a little bit scared at the title of director of football, but I just wanted someone that knew that I work for Steve and Steve works for me. That's how I see a director of football working. We work together to get the best we can out on the football pitch, and then the coaching side of it is over to Steve. And Ross, I'm not interested about being at the training ground in terms of what's going on the grass. That's down to them. Of course, I've got an interest of when they talk about football and I give an opinion, the same as when I'm signing players or trying to sign players. We'll all have an opinion and we'll all come to a conclusion that whatever play it may be is right for us as a football club. So it's just about being smooth. So if you've got any questions out from Steve, fire away.
Sorry, mate.
Go on, mate.
Steve, you work very well at Crewe and you've got experience in non-league as well. How well do you think that equips you for the job that's going to...
Well, it should do. I mean, it's about you know, knowing the leagues, knowing what's required in those leagues. You know, at Nantwich it was about picking up a club that was in the 7th, 8th tier of football. So it's a bit like here. They were rock bottom at the time. They had not a lot of success over the years. So I was able to build a team there, and you know, we had almost 3 consecutive promotions from that. So won a few cups, and then went to Crewe, and it's a similar situation where Good John was there, and I was able to get the opportunity to assist him and then get the job. But I think from the lower leagues, what I learned about the lower leagues is that you do everything. I mean, I was doing blowing the balls up, going out, picking the team, doing the training, making the tea. You know, so from an apprenticeship point of view, coming out of being a professional football for 20 years and then doing that was difficult. It was tough, but it's a good grounding for, you know, managing at this level and above. You know, and I want to go. You know, I want to go higher than this. I want to go higher than League One. I want to try and manage in the Championship and as high as I can possibly go. But the fact that, you know, this is a big club and a big project, that was what attracted me to the job, really.
Steve, you obviously managed that opposition teams here before, but I assume you had a proper look around that, especially for a National League club. It's an unbelievable venue to be playing at.
Yeah, and that might be to the disadvantage of, in many respects, because teams will come here and sit in and try and nick a goal and defend it. So I think we know that. We know it'll be a sort of a feather in people's caps to come here and win here. But you have to deal with that. That's a bit of pressure that's involved in football, and as a group we've got to deal with that on this table and the training ground, the players. We want that pressure, because we know that little bit of pressure just gets a little bit more out of each other. And as I say, we're at the very start of the block, and it's going to be a lot of hard work to climb and be where we want to be. But it is a big club, and we all know where we want to be. It's getting there in a particular way where we can do it a bit at a time and not think that we're going to just walk through the leagues and get back to where we are. So there is some building blocks to do, particularly off the pitch as well as on the pitch. You know.
Obviously there is a lot of excitement around, understandably, but that sort of hard work and, you know, a bit of realism is needed, isn't it? The National League is not going to be easy this season, and, you know, sort of fans can't expect promotion sort of click of the finger, I guess, can they really? No,
I think there should be expectation at a club this size. Always there is, and you know, where the club has been over the last 3 years, I think that's really gone as probably as low as it possibly could. So anything we get from what we can achieve on the pitch is a massive plus. But we are at the very early stages of, you know, we didn't have a team 2 weeks ago, so Marty's worked really hard to get some players in. We're still probably 6 or 7 players short of where we want to be, so we've probably got half of the group that we want to get from recruiting. So from that point of view alone, you know, we're talking only 3 or 4 weeks of the season. It's not a lot of time to plan and organise the team, and, you know, obviously that's myself and Ross's job to try and do that as quickly as we can. But I think, you know, we are a little bit behind where we want to be. But hopefully, as the season goes on, we'll become a better group.
You worked at a club that produced God knows how many England internationals eventually.
Yeah.
Internationals for other teams. One of the bright moments of the dark season was the development of youth here. How excited are you to work with some of the young players here? What have you learned about their potential?
I haven't seen clips from last season's games, which I will. I'll watch and learn more about them from those games. But also, the first time I've seen them is today, really. And, you know, we put some 11v11, Ross put some 11v11 work on, and what I wanted to do was just sit back and see what they can do. And I was really surprised that they're talented boys with huge potential. So from that point of view alone, you know, I'm excited to get out there and be able to try and develop that and get the best out of them and try and help them in any way that I possibly can, because that's something that over the 7 years I've been there is what I've been involved in. And as I say, you know, they're on their way. They're on their way. Obviously, getting some experience last season would have helped them and give them that taste of first team football. But you're just trying to polish them up a little bit. You know, they're a bit rough around the edges, and there's always things that you need to work with them on the training pitch. But there's no magic wand. It literally is hard work and practice, and keep doing it. And if they don't get it right, you practice a bit more. And if that's not right, you just keep doing it. You know, it's one of those things. Suddenly one day it'll come for them. But there's no magic wand. You're not suddenly going to make him a superstar. They've got talent. You've got to bring that out, and also you've got to give them the opportunity. And I think this, at the moment, as I say, the philosophy of the club with Martin, Ross, and Danny is that they want these young lads to progress and be a part of the club. And I think for any fan, I know down, you know, at Crewe, that was the fans love to see the local lads and the lads come through the academy and play, and it gave them great satisfaction. So that's the sort of thing that we'd like to do here.
Just for you, Martin, how important is it that this club has a strong connection with local boys? Because competition from Premier League clubs is fierce, isn't it, to snap up the best kids when they're young? How important is it that you have that local identity to allow you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is for me is that the remit of director of football was from the oldest first team player and staff down to the under-9 player that's over in our centre. I mean, it's important that we show there's a career path here, because I think a lot of the bigger clubs, there isn't one. I really do believe that. I mean, I've got a boy that's involved in it himself that could have went to the bigger clubs but sort of stayed at this level, and is playing pretty regularly for Dagenham now. But there is a sell to the parent. There's a realism that you can actually be an under 10 here and go right the way through. I mean, there's actually a lad here still here when me and Ross were here, a lad called Charlie Barker, who was a 10 when I left, I think, wasn't he? And I was over the centre when I was a manager, but that was quite easy to do because my boy was in the centre. But I was a youth coach here, I was a centre of excellence coach when I played here. So for me, and I think the fact is that the new owners straight away said the academy stays, because people go out of the league and we don't get so much funding this year, and the academy can just a lot of clubs just let it go by the wayside. But it was massively important to the owners and to me that was part of where we wanted to go and fetch the young boys through. I think this group they've got now is probably as good as group as I've seen since probably the group that I bought for in about 2002, which was like the Zakaranis, the Morrises, you know, and the percentage when I left here as a manager was 50% of the first team squad were through the centre. I'm not saying you're always going to get that, but we ain't far from that at the moment. And I just think we've got to be careful on the young boys in terms that they was exposed last year, some rose to the top. But what we know we've got to fetch is a bit of experience to play in and around them. So if you've got 2 or 3 of them in the side rather than 7 or 8 of them in the side, I think you will see them be better, whatever 2 or 3 it is, because they can have some leadership. If you go too young, like they had to at the end of last season, no choice, I think it makes it difficult. But for me, I say my remit is from the under 9 to the oldest player that we've got at a football club, which is David Mooney at this moment in time, in terms of players and staffing through all them levels. And we're going to make sure, obviously I've had to concentrate totally at the top end at the moment, because it's been a bit of a whirlwind really, and what we talked about there at the top end, it's been a bit of a microwave. You know, we've had to do things a lot quicker than we would normally, so sometimes we've had to take chances on players a little bit, because we haven't got the due diligence in terms of scouting, you know, all the evidence that we need, or 10 names in each column to say which one we're going to take, let's have a little go on that one. It's been a bit more like 2 or 3 names in each column, and we're going to have to take a chance on them because we need to fetch them into the building. So the youth for me is massive, and I just think the big thing that we did here when I was here previously, that we had extra coaching for the 18s to 21s, and Steve, you know, was a big part of that crew. You know, I said to him about what do you do as your, you know, for your younger players, because people think they get 18, they're first team pros, they're a finished article. The bigger, you know, they've got a bigger learning curve becoming a pro between the ages of 18 and 21, and I don't think you never ever stop learning, but it's important that Ross is going to partner up with Danny Webb, with the under 18s together with the young pros, and Steve's going to be around it as well. It's going to be about how can we improve that batch of people, and how can they have continued education in the football world, and I think that's important for me as a director of football. Okay.
So in terms of the coaching stuff, obviously you've got Steve and mentioned Danny and Ross as well. Is that pretty much settled now? Or?
When I walked in 3 weeks ago was me and Nick, the analyst, I think at that time. There was 2 of us out of a group of 11. We're only missing a full-time goalkeeper coach and a youth team physio, I think, wasn't it? Is the 2 people missing?
Yep.
Yeah, everyone else is in place now. So you've been doing, yeah, it's been staff, you know, then players. We sort of give a 3-week window to fetch the head coach in, and we've done it in 16 days. So that's you know, 5 days ahead of schedule. So yeah, it's been some long nights. I ain't seen a lot of my wife or my children, who are now grown adults, and quite pleased not to see me. But it's been, yeah, it's been, and it continues to be. I think that we just, with the good thing about it, you know, I brought 4 players in before Steve come here, and then it was like I didn't want to fetch everybody in, as I wouldn't have been able to do it to start with. But you know, Steve, whoever the head coach was, going to have a certain way to play. So then you know, most players can play in most systems, but now we've put all heads together, and we've got a three-way attack on the recruitment. We've also brought a chief scout on board, a lad called Steve Foster. So he's coming into in the building, and he's got information. In fact, the first thing we had yesterday all together was a recruitment meeting. Mm. You know what I mean? Because there may be a name they chuck at me that I ain't quite gone down that avenue to have a look at. So that's, for me at the moment, it's about finishing off the recruitment, and I say I work for Steve to give him the best tools that he can, but with their help and with their input, but then let them get on with the training ground, and while they're doing the training ground, I'll be stuck in the office making all the phone calls and talking to, I was going to swear, I mustn't, some agents.
I guess in that sort of angle, obviously, sort of Martin's always been based mainly down south, but I guess Steve sort of coming from up north, I guess you'll have a lot more knowledge from, in terms of recruitment from players up north, so that'll be a nice sort of angle, I guess. For
yeah, I mean, most of the database we had is northwest around there, and I did say that in the interview tonight about the catchment areas that you tend to recruit from, because it costs less money basically, because you haven't got to relocate anybody. But when we spoke about it, I thought the best idea was to get recruit from within an hour and a half of this area into London, because it's a big thing for someone to move from north east or north. I mean, I'm a Midland boy, so I'm not a million miles away. I'm a Birmingham lad, so it's, you know, I have been down here before. But for a lad that's come in from Sunderland or Newcastle or even Liverpool or Manchester, it's a different way of life. It really is. I mean, you know, I've only been here a week, and already I've nearly crashed my car about 15 times. So it is a different way of life, and it's expensive. And I think recruiting with kids that and players that are already here in this area is much better, because the budget will go longer, will go further. So I think that's the best way forward for at the moment, anyway.
You sort of mentioned you're based in Midlands. Sort of any ideas to sort of move down to London, or?
Well, I'm going to rent down here anyway at the moment. So depending on, you know, obviously I want to do a good job and stay here for many years, and then if that's the case, then yeah, I would tend to move down here.
Yeah. Just sort of from your own point of view, Ross, I know Swindon have got a pretty decent reputation when it comes to sort of bringing a few youngsters as well. So I guess from your own point of view, looking forward to working for Orient kids as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been sort of my background until I went to Swindon has always been in youth development across a number of different clubs, primarily in one that I always look back, you know, 2 was the start of my career here. You know, I played here as a kid and wasn't quite good enough to go much further, but you know, turned into sort of working for the community programme and then managing the academy. So it's something that I've always been enthusiastic about, whatever club that I've worked at. You're right, we try to have that sort of philosophy with the way that we develop some of the young players at Swindon, but I think there's a little bit more sort of direction and structure as to how we do that now, and you know, been touched upon already this afternoon about the number of talented players that we've got in and around the first team and the youth team at the moment. So there's a sort of ready group sitting there waiting to hopefully kick on, but it's something that I know we're all passionate about, but personally it's sort of got me to where I am so far working with young players.
Yeah, and sort of how was that first week for you? I guess no manager in place. It was sort of the onus on yourself and Danny to sort of pleased with how that went, I guess. Yeah,
very pleased. You know, you're never quite sure what you're walking into when you're sitting in front of all the staff and they're waiting for you to give them some direction and tell them exactly what you want done. So that was quite interesting and eye-opening for me. I enjoyed it. It was good. I think the biggest plus for me was the attitude that the players come in with. Everybody came in really enthusiastic, really keen to go. You know, I suppose it could have been a little bit the other way with, you know, returning off the back of some negatives last year, but there was no sign of that, no hangover from what's gone before at all. The new players that we brought in came in and really fitted in well to the group. I think they've already sort of identified that they're going to be responsible for helping a number of those young players, and they sort of pretty much within the first couple of days, once they got their breath back after some of the longer runs, that they were, you know, a big part of their roles within the club was going to be to try and help us first and foremost win games, but you know, help that group, help them to be successful this season. So that made things a hell of a lot easier working with the likes of Dave Mooney, who, you know, has been here before, and Charlie Lee, you know, two lads that have got a hell of a lot of experience that come in and really help that process for me.
Steve, just sort of final for myself, in terms of the players that are in at the moment, have you worked with any of them before? Or sort of had a brief, I don't think you have. But
no, I tried to sign David Mooney last season with Chris Dagnall, to be fair, so I did try to get that partnership back. And Moon said he would have come, to be fair, but he wasn't told, and anyway I got Dagnall but didn't get Mooney. But so we've had that sort of, over the last few years I've tried to bring him to Crewe. But other than that, no, played, you know, managed against players that have played against us, Charlie, but the young kids I've not seen till today really. So that was intriguing and exciting.
Why Leyton Orient? What were the pulling factors that bring you to this club?
Well, the projects, the way they were talking about what they wanted to do. You know, I'd spoke to the owner and the chairman after I'd had my interview on the Monday. I spoke to them as well for a couple of hours, and they were talking through you know, because they're so passionate about the club and the club that they own now. So, and all it did was just make myself more determined to want the job if I was offered the job. So it's a big club. I mean, you've only got to look around, and you know, steeped in history. I've done a bit of research on it, and we've always come down and felt that way when I brought teams down to play Orient. I've always felt you could do more, you know, and you know, that's the challenge for me really. And I know it's going to be a tough challenge for us all sat here, but you know, I've never shirked a challenge, and you know, I'm looking forward to being at a club of this size and working at this club, because I see it as a long-term thing, and something that interests me more than anything else.
And how big a part will the fans play this season?
Massive. I mean, they're a massive part, aren't they? The fans are everything to the football club in the end. You know, I'm not sure how they felt about the last 3 years. You know, I spoke to some last season when I came down here. They were just shaking their heads in the disbelief of what was happening. So, you know, I think everyone in the football world felt for the club. We all talk about other clubs and as managers, and we all felt the same as, I'm sure we felt the same as the fans. You know, we're disappointed that it was going in that direction, and you know, as I say, I'm delighted that I'm in a situation and position now where, you know, I could change people's perceptions of it all and get people back in watching, hopefully, football they'll enjoy watching, and you know, at the same time win some games.
Fantastic, thank you.
So you say that you feel the club can do more and that your own ambition is to potentially manage in the Championship one day. Is that somewhere you can see yourself taking Leyton Orient, obviously not at the moment but years down the line?
If that was the case, yeah, if I was able to do that, and you know, the discussions I've had with the owners have been positive. I think the club wants stability. You know, I was there for 7 years on my first job, and that's quite rare in management now, that you know, a lot of managers don't get the opportunity to start with, and 80% don't get a second job because of their first job. So it is very difficult to get back in, but this is a much bigger club than my previous club, in terms of what's ahead of us. But you know, the longevity is something that attracted me to the club. I love working with young players. I love working with something that's a challenge, and I think this provides me with one of the biggest challenges at the moment, probably with any football club.
What do you think is going to be the largest obstacle that you encounter in the upcoming season?
The biggest obstacle? That's a good question. Probably maybe a little bit of complacency sometimes, particularly if we start well and do well in periods of the game. You know, because it's like the gentleman said there, it's a big club and teams will want to come here and win, and so we have to deal with that. So I think whether that's an obstacle or a challenge, I don't know, but that in itself, going to some of the grounds that are going to be a lot less than what we've got here. You know, December the pitches are going to go, and there's going to be 1,000 people watching at some grounds. It's a mentality thing for the players to be able to switch themselves on, to go to grounds on a Tuesday night, wet night, nobody there, horrible pitch. You know, that's the test, and so the mentality is really important. So we approach every game with whatever squad we have at the time, and make sure there isn't that complacency doesn't creep in at any point. You know, if you want to be successful and get promoted and win leagues, and then you've got to be able to deal with those types of games as well. So I think that's maybe one of the things. There's probably a lot more, but that's one of the things definitely.